The city lights shimmered like spilled diamonds across the skyline of New York that evening. Inside the Golden Plate, the most elite restaurant in Manhattan, the air buzzed with quiet sophistication. The gentle hum of jazz filled the air, glasses clinked in perfect rhythm, and wealthy patrons spoke in low, polished tones. But all that elegance hid a trembling truth among the staff. Ethan Carter had just arrived. Ethan wasn't just any customer. He was the Ethan Carter, a billionaire CEO of Carter Enterprises, one of the most powerful business empires in America. Known for his sharp mind, cold demeanor, and impossible standards, he could make or break reputations with a single sentence. His presence in the restaurant meant one thing for everyone working there: perfection or unemployment. In the corner of the bustling kitchen, Lila Monroe, a 24-year-old waitress, tightened her ponytail and wiped her flour-covered hands on her apron. She wasn't supposed to be near the stoves tonight. Her job was to serve, smile, and disappear quietly. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Just an hour earlier, the head chef had collapsed with a sudden allergy attack, leaving chaos in the kitchen. Orders piled up. The sous chefs panicked, and when Ethan's special request came in, nobody dared touch it. The order read, spaghetti al tartufo nero, no substitutes, no mistakes. That was Ethan's signature dish, something he only ordered once a year. Always cooked to perfection. Who's going to make it? One of the kitchen assistants whispered, fear in his voice. No one spoke. The executive sous chef, hands shaking, muttered, "He'll destroy us if we get it wrong." Lila, who'd been quietly washing dishes nearby, looked up. I can try." Heads turned instantly. "You?" another cook scoffed. "You're a waitress, not a chef." "I know," she said softly, "but I've studied cooking for years. My mom taught me Italian recipes before she passed away. Maybe I can help." The room fell silent. The sous chef hesitated, glancing nervously at the dining area. "If you mess this up, it's your job." Lila nodded, already rolling up her sleeves. "Then I guess I better not mess up." She got to work, moving with calm precision. The kitchen buzzed around her, but Lila focused only on the rhythm of her mother's voice in her head. "Good food doesn't come from recipes, sweetheart. It comes from love." She grated the black truffles carefully, stirred the cream just enough to catch its sweetness, and sprinkled a hint of nutmeg, something her mother used to do for warmth. Every movement was measured, not by fear, but by heart. Out in the dining room, Ethan sat alone, his phone face down on the table for once. He stared at the city lights through the glass wall, his mind far from business. Earlier that day, he had broken off an engagement with a woman who loved his wealth more than his soul. It was a clean, calculated decision, but for the first time in years, it left him feeling empty. The waiter approached, trembling slightly as he set the steaming plate of pasta before him. "Your meal, Mr. Carter." Ethan nodded curtly and picked up his fork. He twirled the pasta, took a bite, then froze. A silence stretched through the restaurant. His sharp eyes narrowed as he chewed slowly. Then, for the first time in years, something flickered across his face: nostalgia. He lowered the fork and spoke quietly. "Who cooked this?" The waiter looked panicked. The chef had to leave, sir." A waitress filled in. Ethan's brows shot up. "A waitress?" "Yes, sir. Lila Monroe." He leaned back in his chair, intrigued. "Tell her to come here." Moments later, Lila emerged from the kitchen, still wearing her plain apron and a nervous smile. Her heart pounded as she walked toward the most intimidating man she had ever met. "You cooked this?" he asked, his tone unreadable. "Yes, sir," she replied, voice trembling slightly. "The chef wasn't available, so I stepped in. I hope it's acceptable." Ethan looked down at the dish, then back at her. "Acceptable?" He took another bite, slower this time. "This tastes exactly like something my grandmother used to make." Lila's lips parted in surprise. "Really, that's amazing. I just tried to make it with heart." His eyes studied her carefully, the cold businessman giving way to something more human. "How did you learn to cook like that?" "My mom," Lila said softly. She taught me everything before she passed away. I cook because it makes me feel close to her. For a brief moment, Ethan felt a strange warmth he hadn't known in years. The honesty in her eyes disarmed him completely. He chuckled lightly, shaking his head. You know, I've had Michelin star chefs try to replicate this flavor. None of them could. And yet here you are, just a waitress, doing it perfectly. Lila blushed. Maybe it's not about perfection, sir. Maybe it's about meaning. Her words hit him harder than he expected. He set down his fork, leaned back, and said in a tone half challenging, half curious, Tell you what, Miss Monroe, cook me this same dish again tomorrow night. If it tastes as good as this. He paused for dramatic effect, his blue eyes glinting with amusement. I'll marry you, the restaurant gasped. A waiter nearly dropped a tray. Someone whispered, Did he just propose? Lila's mouth fell open. What, sir? That's not funny. I'm not joking, Ethan replied, his smirk fading into something sincere. Let's see if you can turn passion into consistency. Cook it again. Same taste, same feeling. If you can, I'll keep my word. She stood frozen for a moment, unsure whether to laugh or run. Then she saw the seriousness in his eyes and nodded. Fine, I'll do it. The next day, the entire city buzzed with headlines. Billionaire proposes marriage to waitress in wild cooking challenge. Paparazzi camped outside the Golden Plate. Reporters swarmed the entrance. Inside the kitchen, Lila tried to shut it all out. Her hands trembled slightly as she began to cook again. Same ingredients, same care, same heart. But this time, something was different. She wasn't cooking to prove herself. She was cooking to remind Ethan of what mattered. Feeling, connection, warmth. When she stepped out of the kitchen that night, the restaurant went silent again. Cameras clicked. Ethan sat waiting, the faintest smile on his lips. Lila placed the dish in front of him and took a step back. He tasted it. One bite, then another. Silence. Finally, Ethan looked up, eyes softer than before. You didn't just recreate it, he said quietly. You made it better. Applause erupted around them. Lila exhaled in relief, smiling for the first time that evening. Ethan stood, reached into his pocket and placed a small velvet box on the table. He opened it, not with arrogance, but with awe. Lila Monroe, he said, his voice steady but warm. You just cooked your way into my heart. The flashbulbs exploded. The world was watching, but for Lila, the only thing she saw was the man who, behind all his walls of wealth, had finally tasted something real. Love. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of the story that would change both their lives forever. The night the billionaire CEO declared his love for a waitress became one of the most viral moments in the country. News outlets called it the modern Cinderella story. Social media exploded with hashtags. The waitress and the CEO now love through cooking. Yet behind the glitter of the headlines and flashing cameras, something deeper and far more real was beginning to bloom. For Lila Monroe, life changed overnight. Reporters followed her to work, fans waited outside the restaurant, and strangers called her the luckiest girl in America. But luck had nothing to do with it. Lila was still the same girl who worked 2 jobs to pay rent, who studied culinary arts at night, and who still wrote her mother's recipes in a worn-out notebook. Still, she couldn't ignore that her heart fluttered every time Ethan's name appeared on her phone. 3 days after the viral dinner, Ethan sent her an invitation, handwritten, elegant, sealed with gold. Dinner, my place. No cameras, just us. EC, Lila hesitated. Billionaire mansions weren't her world, but curiosity, and something unspoken, pulled her in. That evening, as her cab pulled up to his estate overlooking Central Park, she was struck silent. The Carter mansion looked like something out of a dream. Glass walls reflecting city lights, fountains dancing in the courtyard, and a staff so polished they looked like they belonged in a movie. A butler opened the door with a polite nod. Mr. Carter is waiting for you, Miss Monroe. Inside, the air was warm, filled with the scent of cedar and freshly baked bread. Lila followed the corridor until she saw him, Ethan Carter, The man who had once been a symbol of power and distance, now standing in casual clothes by a kitchen island, sleeves rolled up, holding a wooden spoon. "Welcome," he said with a small smile. "I was just trying to make dinner." Lila blinked. "You? Cooking?" He smirked. "I thought it was time I learned what all the fuss is about." She laughed softly, tension fading from her shoulders. "All right then, Chef Carter, show me what you've got." What he had, apparently, was a mess. Flour dusted the marble counters, pasta sauce bubbled over, and something smelled dangerously close to burnt. Ethan sighed. "Okay, maybe I need a teacher." Lila picked up the spoon, guiding his hand with hers as they stirred the sauce together. "You're heavy-handed," she teased. "Gentle." Like this, their eyes met briefly. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something foreign. Peace. No board meetings, no stock numbers, no negotiations. Just laughter, warmth, and the sound of sauce simmering between them. "Tell me something," he said quietly. "Why did you take that risk? Cooking for me that night." She paused, thinking. "Because I couldn't watch everyone give up. Someone had to try, and my mom always said, if you're scared, do it anyway. That's how you grow." Ethan nodded, visibly moved. "She must have been an incredible woman." "She was," Lila said, smiling sadly. "We didn't have much, but she made sure every meal felt like home. I guess I wanted you to feel that too." That night they shared the burnt pasta, and somehow it tasted perfect. Over the next few weeks, Ethan found reasons to see her again. Sometimes it was culinary practice, sometimes it was business advice, but everyone around him noticed the change. The cold, commanding CEO had softened. His secretary, his board members, even his driver, everyone saw it. And Lila, she found herself drawn to a side of Ethan the world never saw. Beneath the sharp suits and ruthless confidence was a man who missed his parents, who ate cereal for dinner when he was too tired to order food, who hadn't laughed, really laughed, in years. Their friendship blossomed quietly. They went grocery shopping together at 2 a.m., laughing over which pasta brand was better. They cooked in his massive kitchen, dancing barefoot to old jazz tunes. Lila even taught him how to flip pancakes, though the first one landed squarely on his face. One evening, as they cleaned up after dinner, Ethan looked at her thoughtfully. "Do you ever wish for more, Lila?" She shrugged, rinsing a plate. "More what?" "More than this life. More than cooking, waiting tables, chasing dreams that might not pay off." She smiled softly. "I already have more, Ethan. I have peace. I do what I love. I'm not chasing money. I'm chasing meaning." Her words struck him again, just like that night in the restaurant. Meaning. That was something money had never bought him. Days turned into weeks. Rumors swirled that the billionaire and the waitress were secretly dating, but neither confirmed it. Still, Ethan's company stock rose. People said he seemed happier, more human. And Lila's cooking career skyrocketed. Every magazine wanted her recipes. Every show wanted her story. Yet in private, they kept things simple. One night, Ethan took her back to the Golden Plate, now closed for a private event. As she walked in, the lights dimmed, and the same soft jazz played. The same night they first met. Confused, Lila turned to him. "What is this?" Ethan smiled, leading her to the table where it all began. "Do you remember what you told me? That food tastes better when it means something?" She nodded slowly. He took her hands. "You made me realize that life is the same way. For years I chased success. I bought everything, except happiness. Then you walked in, and reminded me what it felt like to be human again." Lila's breath caught. "Ethan." He reached into his pocket, pulling out the same small velvet box he had once jokingly shown her in front of the cameras. But this time it wasn't a game. "Lila Monroe," he said softly, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "The first time I said I'd marry you, it was a challenge. But now, it's a promise." The restaurant filled with candlelight as he went down on one knee. "Will you cook beside me for the rest of our lives?" Tears welled in her eyes, spilling freely down her cheeks. For a moment, she was that same nervous waitress again. But this time, standing in front of the man she loved, not feared. She laughed through her tears. "Only if you promise to always do the dishes." He chuckled, slipping the ring onto her finger. "Deal." The staff watching from the sidelines cheered quietly, some wiping their eyes. And as they shared a slow dance in the glow of the city lights, the billionaire and the waitress, two people from entirely different worlds, became proof that love doesn't care about titles, money, or fame. What started as a challenge had turned into a love story that would inspire millions. Because sometimes, the recipe for happiness isn't written in cookbooks or spreadsheets. It's found in the courage to open your heart. Years later, when reporters asked Lila what her secret was, she smiled and said, "It's simple. I cooked with love, and he finally learned to taste it."